The world of Echion 3 was a graveyard of civilizations. The ground was scorched black from plasma bombardments, and the air shimmered with ion residue that made compasses useless and scanners blind. The Vailari Empire had called it pacified months ago, but for some reason, patrols kept disappearing. General Serix Vael, commander of the 7th Legion, stood on the edge of a shattered ridge. Her armor gleamed like liquid metal, shifting hues to reflect the dying sun. She watched the valley below, where the remains of an old Terran settlement lay in ruin. "This planet was supposed to be uninhabited," she said. Her adjutant, Colonel Dren, checked his visor. "Scouts confirm no organized resistance, my lady. Just scattered heat signatures. Likely animals." Serix's eyes narrowed. "Animals don't shoot down dropships with precision." She descended the ridge, each step hissing as her armor recalibrated to gravity. Her people had conquered 100 worlds, hive planets, gas colonies, orbital fortresses. No one fought like humans, and no one survived annihilation this long. She didn't know whether to be impressed or insulted. That night, as the twin moons rose, her forward camp set perimeter sentries. Vailari soldiers, tall, pale, efficient, moved like machines, their plasma carbines humming softly in the dark. Then came the sound. A crack. Not the shriek of plasma, not the whine of energy discharge. A bang, sharp and thunderous, echoing through the night like lightning trapped in steel. The nearest soldier went down instantly. Armor punctured clean through the chest plate. Serix froze. "Report!" "Projectile weapon, primitive," shouted Dren. "Chemical-based." Another shot. Then another. The sound bounced between the rocks, impossible to triangulate. Her visor displayed muzzle flash heat signatures for a split second before they vanished again. The shots came faster, controlled, disciplined. Each one struck center, mass, or joint, shields up. Serix barked, but it didn't matter. The bullets tore through their shields as if they were made of air. By dawn, 12 soldiers were dead, 3 wounded. No trace of the attacker. Serix examined one of the rounds herself, a piece of metal jacketed, small enough to fit between her fingers. "This is absurd," she muttered. "A weapon that relies on combustion." "Archaic design," said Dren, scanning the bullet. "Copper-jacketed lead slug. Primitive beyond measure. And yet it killed a dozen elite legionnaires," Serix said coldly. "Whoever he is, he knows terrain warfare. Uses the radiation pockets to blind our optics." Serix looked toward the hills. "A ghost, then?" "No, my lady," Dren said quietly. "A human." That evening, the Vailari set bait. A decoy patrol, heavily armored, walking a predictable path through the ruins. Sensors lined the perimeter, every movement tracked by thermal grids and biomonitors. Serix watched from the command shelter. "He'll strike when we're exposed," she said. "It's instinct." The Terrans can't resist an ambush. And she was right. The shot came less than an hour later, one clean round through the decoy's visor. But before the scanners could lock on, the reading scrambled again. "He's jamming us," shouted a tech. Serix snarled. "Find him!" They swept the valley, nothing. Only silence and dust. But when her squad returned, a single message had been etched into the hull of their dropship. "Not yours." Serix stared at the words for a long moment. "He's taunting us." "Permission to deploy drones?" Dren asked. "No, drones make noise. He's hunting silence." She looked over the horizon. "He knows how we think, how we move. That's no scavenger. That's a soldier." Dren hesitated. "Then why stay behind? Why fight a war that's over?" Serix's lips curved into something almost like a smile. "Because humans don't know when they've lost." 2 days later, she went out herself. No escorts, no drones. Only her rifle and her pride. The valley was quiet. No wind, no life. She moved carefully, stepping over wreckage and rusted Terran banners half buried in the sand. The Empire had burned everything here years ago. There was nothing left to defend, and yet the feeling of being watched never left her. Then might that sound again. Click! She turned sharply. There he was, a human male, scarred and dust-covered, wearing battered combat armor patched with cloth. In his hands, a rifle made of wood and steel, stained and polished with age. He didn't aim right away. Just looked at her, calm, focused. "Drop the weapon," Serix said. The man tilted his head. "This is the weapon." She raised her plasma rifle. He didn't flinch. "You think that thing can harm me?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Lady, this gun's older than your empire." She fired first. A beam of white energy tore through the air, but he had already moved, vanishing behind cover before the shot hit. Then came his response, 3 rounds, clean and precise. Each struck the exact joint seams of her armor, where plating met servos. The impact threw her off balance, alarms flaring in her HUD. "Your shields don't like heat dispersion, do they?" His voice echoed through the ruins. "How do you—" He stepped from the shadow, the wooden rifle steady in his hands. "Because your kind never learned to miss," she lunged. He fired once more. The bullet hit her shoulder plate, shattering half its circuitry. She stumbled, plasma rifle skidding across the dust. He approached slowly. "Weapon raised. Finish it," she hissed. He didn't. He stopped just a few meters away. "Eyes steady. This rifle's not for conquest," he said. "It's for reminders." "Reminders? That no matter how far we go, we remember where we came from." Serix glared at him. "And where's that?" "Dirt and smoke," he smiled. "Exactly." He lowered the rifle, backing away. "You can take your empire and go. Hechion's not for you." She rose to her feet, wounded but defiant. "You think one man can stop the Vailari?" He turned toward the ridge. "I already did." "Check your comms." She blinked. Static filled her channel. The entire Legion's command net was fried. "Impossible. EMP in your drop zone," he said over his shoulder. "Homemade. Guess your tech didn't like our primitive radiation storms." And then he was gone, swallowed by the ruins. Hours later, as Serix limped back to her ship, she found another message carved into a wall. "We don't need to conquer to belong." She stared at it for a long time. For the first time in years, she didn't feel victorious. She felt human. The storm rolled across Echion 3 like a living thing, a curtain of red dust and static sweeping through the shattered valley. Lightning flickered across the horizon, illuminating what was left of the Vailari encampment. General Serix Vial stood beneath the fractured canopy of her command transport, one arm bound in a polymer cast. Her armor hissed quietly, where circuits still smoldered from yesterday's encounter. The engineers kept glancing at her as they worked, not out of concern but disbelief. A single human had crippled an entire legion. Colonel Dren approached carefully. "My lady, the atmospheric interference has increased tenfold since the last engagement. We've lost all long-range telemetry." Serix didn't turn to look at him. "He's using the storms. Knows exactly when our optics blind out. With respect, the storms are random." "No," she said, voice cold. "He creates them." They had found traces that morning. Empty casings, stripped comm chips, and crude but effective magnetic mines that used scavenged Vailari batteries. Primitive, yes, but effective enough to bring down their dropships. Serix crouched beside one of the disassembled devices. "He's using our own power cells." Dren knelt beside her. "The readings show improvised field modulation. This kind of weaponry shouldn't exist outside a military lab. Unless someone taught him," she muttered. Dren hesitated. "You think he's not alone?" Serix's expression hardened. "He's the last soldier of a dead world. And he's fighting as if the war never ended." They moved out again at dusk, smaller team, lighter armor. Serix had learned her lesson. No noise, no lights. The ruins stretched endlessly, twisted metal and half-buried concrete under centuries of dust. Broken Terran banners still clung to the walls, faded insignias of an empire that had fallen long before the Vailari ever came. Dren paused by a collapsed structure. This city must have been their capital once. Hard to believe these savages built anything like it. Serix ran her fingers across the rusted wall. "Not savages," she said. "Survivors. And the man we're hunting is their memory made flesh." They reached an intersection where several tunnels met. The storm outside muted into low, distant thunder. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally. Serix raised a hand. Silence. She tilted her head, listening. "There's a faint metallic click. Down!" she snapped. An explosion ripped through the corridor, the shockwave slamming them against the walls. Dren's armor flared, shielding him from most of it. But Serix's sensors overloaded instantly. The air filled with dust and static. Then came that unmistakable sound, crack. A single round, precise, controlled. Dren stumbled, clutching his side. He's flanking!" Serix pulled him behind a collapsed beam. Her HUD flickered with interference. Nothing but static and shadows. "Thermal scan," she ordered. "Useless." Dren wheezed. "He's masking his heat signature with radiation pockets." Serix cursed. "He knows every inch of this place." Another round struck the beam inches from her head, showering sparks. She drew a blade, short, curved, monomolecular. The Vailari didn't often need melee weapons, but now plasma would give her away. "Stay down," she whispered to Dren. "He's after me." She slipped into the dark, her movement silent as mist. Her vision adjusted slowly, revealing broken hallways and collapsed corridors. Somewhere in the shadows she could feel him, patient, waiting. Then a voice echoed softly. "You came alone this time." Serix froze. He stepped out from the dark, the same human, dust-covered and calm, rifle slung over his shoulder. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Your kind doesn't survive long on this ground." "You ambushed my soldiers," she said quietly. He nodded. "They fired first. You killed them with relics." He smiled faintly. "They work." Serix tightened her grip on the blade. "You could have left this planet." "Why stay?" "Because it's home," he said simply. "And because every time your empire calls a place pacified, it means it's still bleeding." She took a step closer. "Your home died a long time ago." He looked her in the eye. "Then stop trying to kill what's left of it." The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of ion discharge. The storm was returning. Serix glanced toward the ceiling, cracks forming in the structure above. She knew what he was doing. "You timed the explosion for the storm," she said. "You're not just hiding in it. You're controlling it." He gave a small nod. "Storm's not just weather. It's fallout. You fire enough plasma into the upper atmosphere, you change the planet's magnetosphere." Serix blinked. "You weaponized it." "Didn't have a choice," he said. "It's how we survived the purge." Lightning lit the sky above them. The entire structure trembled. Serix activated her mag boots just as a section of ceiling collapsed. When the dust settled, she found herself alone. He was gone again. She cursed under her breath. "Dren, report!" "Static, Dren!" A faint transmission broke through. "He took me." "Alive?" Serix's blood went cold. "Coordinates." No response. She slammed her gauntlet into the wall, sparks flying. "He's taking prisoners now." But deep down she knew it wasn't revenge. It was message.night fell over the ruins. Serix found the remnants of a makeshift camp deep in the catacombs. Burned wood, food rations, a single Terran flag folded neatly beside an old dented helmet. And there, sitting in the dirt, was the rifle, the same wooden stock, the same metal barrel. But it wasn't loaded. Beside it, etched into the rock with a knife. "You aim with precision. We aim with purpose." She picked up the weapon carefully. It was heavier than she expected. Mechanical, beautifully simple. Not a single circuit or sensor. A machine built for one thing, to endure. "Why leave it?" she whispered. "Because it wasn't meant for her." It was a lesson. She raised the rifle to her shoulder, sighting down its iron sights. It felt primitive, but pure. No AI correction. No guidance systems. Only instinct. For the first time in her life, she realized how much her empire had forgotten about the art of survival. Hours later, she found Dren tied to a support beam in the next chamber, alive but unconscious. His weapons and armor stripped. A first aid pack rested beside him. Human issue. Serix untied him, jaw tightening. "He could have killed you." When Dren awoke, his voice was hoarse. "He said to tell you something." Serix's heart pounded. "What?" Dren swallowed. "He said empires fall, but humanity doesn't." The storm outside intensified again, rolling like thunder made of grief. Serix looked out across the valley, once more empty, silent, and alive with unseen eyes. She raised the rifle one last time, not to aim, but to salute. "I understand," she whispered. "You fight not to win. You fight to remember." The shipyard on Acheon 3 was silent, except for the faint hum of a lone generator. General Serix Vael stood over a disassembled human rifle, laid out on a steel table. Its wooden stock was cracked, its barrel scuffed. But every component was perfectly machined, precise in a way that no Vailari engineer could dismiss as primitive. Colonel Dren watched from a few paces away, his arm still in a sling. "You've been studying that thing for days," he said quietly. "It's a museum piece, not a weapon." Serix's eyes narrowed as she examined the firing pin. "If it were just a weapon, it wouldn't have broken through our armor." She turned the chamber in her hands. "This rifle was made for chaos. No AI correction, no energy calibration. It's not perfection, it's adaptation. That's what makes it dangerous." Dren frowned. Our weapons adjust automatically for atmospheric variance. His doesn't. That should make it weaker. Serix shook her head. No, it makes him free. She set the rifle down gently, almost reverently. You know why he fights so well, Dren? Because his weapon doesn't think for him. Every pull of the trigger is a decision. Every miss is a lesson. Dren hesitated. You sound almost impressed. I am, the colonel folded his arms. With respect, General, this is one man. You command legions. She looked out through the viewport where the storm still rolled endlessly over the valley. Empires fall when they stop learning. He's teaching me something my empire forgot. How to fight without certainty. Dren said nothing. He'd seen the look in her eyes before. The same one she'd had as a young officer, before victory had dulled her curiosity. That evening, Serix walked alone through the ruins of the Terran city. The sun bled out across the horizon, staining the sand gold and crimson. She carried the rifle on her shoulder, feeling its weight, the grain of the wood warm under her fingers. Her armor AI whispered warnings about exposure, but she ignored it. For the first time, she deactivated her sensors. No scanners, no drones, no satellite feed, just instinct. The silence was alive. Every creak of metal, every gust of wind told her more than data ever could. When the first echo came, a faint clink of metal against stone, she froze. He was there again. The human stepped from behind the ruins, expression unreadable, hands raised in peace. I have fixed it, he said, nodding toward the rifle. Serix studied him carefully. It's elegant, simple, deadly. He smiled faintly. Yeah, we build things that can break and still work. Why leave it for me? She asked. Because you wouldn't understand until you held it. She glanced down at the weapon. You wanted me to learn. I wanted you to see why we never needed empires. The wind picked up, whipping dust between them. You're not just a soldier, she said. You're a relic of something older, he shrugged. Relic, survivor, and same difference. You could have joined us, she said quietly. The Vailari don't destroy strength. We absorb it, his gaze hardened. That's why you'll never win. You think strength is something you take. We think it's something you earn. Serix tightened her grip on the rifle. You think your people were better? He shook his head. No, just more desperate. Lightning flared across the clouds, illuminating their faces in stuttering bursts of light. The human lowered his voice. Your empire conquered planets because you could. My kind fought because we had to. She looked at him for a long moment. And what do you fight for now? He gestured to the desolate horizon. This dust? Memory, Serix tilted her head. How you cling to ghosts, he smiled faintly. Better ghosts than masters. She raised the rifle slightly, not as a threat, but as a challenge. You believe you can stop an empire with one weapon? Not the weapon, he said. The will to use it. And when you die, then someone else picks it up. Serix stared at him, the wind pulling at her hair. There was no arrogance in his voice, no defiance, only conviction. And for the first time she understood why her soldiers had feared him. It wasn't the rifle. It was the belief. The storm intensified. Static crackled through the ruins. The human looked skyward, eyes narrowing. Your fleet's coming back. Serix blinked. What? He pointed toward the horizon. Faint streaks of violet light cutting through the clouds. Reinforcements. They'll glass the valley to erase me. She frowned. You think they'd destroy their own general? He smirked. If they think you've gone rogue. Realization hit her like a pulse shock. The Empire didn't tolerate disobedience. The moment she went dark to chase him, they'd have flagged her as compromised. They'll bomb us both, she said quietly. He nodded. Seems fair. For a moment, neither moved. Then Serix's expression hardened. There's a tunnel beneath the ruins. Old Terran infrastructure. It connects to the riverbed 3 clicks north. We can survive the bombardment if we reach it in time. She looked at him evenly. You know the terrain. I have the codes to bypass orbital targeting. We need each other. He hesitated, then nodded once. Lead the way, they ran. The sky split open behind them as the first plasma bombardments hit, turning the horizon into molten glass. The shockwaves chased them through the ruins, throwing shards of stone and metal like knives. They reached the tunnel entrance just as the second volley struck. Serix dove in first, rolling behind a collapsed support beam. The human followed, dragging a piece of steel plating over the entrance. The world above screamed, light and sound collapsing into a single deafening roar. Then, silence. In the dark, only the soft click of a lighter broke the stillness. The man lit a small flame, its glow flickering over his face. "You okay?" Serix nodded, exhaling shakily. "Your people built this." "Yeah," he said softly. "Shelters for the ones who couldn't fight." She studied the walls, reinforced, scarred, but still intact after centuries. "They survived the end of the world in here," he nodded. "And they told stories about how the last humans would stand on this ground and refuse to kneel." Serix stared into the flame. "How you believed them?" He looked at her. "I still do." They sat in silence for a long time, the echo of distant thunder above them. Finally, Serix spoke. "When I was a child, my instructors told us humans were extinct, that you burned your world rather than surrender." "Not wrong," he said. She smiled faintly. "And now here I am and hiding beside the last one." He gave a quiet chuckle. "Funny how survival works." The storm began to fade. When the first rays of light seeped through the cracks above, Serix rose to her feet. "When this ends," she said, "they'll call you a myth. They'll say no human could have done this." He stood beside her, gripping the rifle once more. "Then let them forget. We'll still remember." Serix met his gaze, and for a fleeting second, there was something almost like respect or kinship between conqueror and survivor. The tunnels of Echion III groaned as the bombardment above continued. Dust drifted from the ceiling in lazy spirals, glowing in the faint light of the human's small flame. General Serix Vale pressed her back against the wall, breathing slow and shallow. Even in her advanced armor, she could feel the heat from the detonations. The air vibrated with each strike, like a heartbeat gone mad. The man sat across from her, rifle resting on his knees, expression calm. "They're not stopping," he said quietly. "You must have scared them bad." Serix's lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "No, they're cleansing the record. The Vailari don't leave witnesses, not even their own." He nodded, unsurprised. "Then we're both ghosts now." For a long while neither spoke. Only the thunder of orbital fire filled the silence. When the bombardment finally ceased, the world above was dead quiet. No wind, no birds, just the echo of something vast having ended. Serix was the first to stand. "We move," she said. "The tunnels extend to the mountain range. If the Empire thinks I'm dead, we'll have a few days before reconnaissance teams arrive." The human slung his rifle over his shoulder. "You plan to run?" "I plan to think," she said sharply. "You taught me that much," he smirked faintly. "Didn't think my lessons were catching on." "Don't flatter yourself," she said, but her tone lacked venom. They followed the tunnel system upward. The deeper they went, the more ancient it became. Stone replacing metal, walls carved with markings from civilizations long forgotten. As they climbed, the air grew thin and cold. Serix's armor lights flickered, running low on power. Finally, they emerged into the light. The world outside was unrecognizable. The entire valley had been glass smooth. A sea of molten earth hardened into black mirror. The storm was gone. The sky was clear. Serix stared at it in silence. They erased everything. The human stepped beside her. "That's what empires do when they can't win. They rewrite history." She turned to him. "You sound like someone who's seen it before." He looked at the horizon. "Once or twice." They found shelter in a cliffside cavern as night fell. The temperature dropped quickly, and the light of 2 shattered moons painted the world in pale silver. Serix removed her helmet, setting it aside. "So what now?" He poked at a small fire he'd built from scavenged debris. "You tell me. You're the general." Her jaw tightened. "Not anymore. To them I'm already dead." He studied her. "Then maybe that's a good thing." "How so?" He gestured around. "You've spent your life fighting for an empire that doesn't need you, that doesn't even see you. Out here you could start over," she snorted. "Start what?" "A rebellion." "Maybe something smaller," he said. "A memory." Serix stared into the fire. The heat flickered across her sharp features, painting her armor in orange and gold. "You really believe memory can stand against a fleet?" "It already did," he said simply. "You're still alive." She looked at him, searching for arrogance, for mockery, and found none. Only conviction. The kind of quiet strength her empire's soldiers had long forgotten. "You fight without hope," she said softly. "And somehow that's what makes you dangerous," he chuckled. "No, General. I fight because of hope. A cold wind swept through the cavern, carrying the distant hum of engines. Syrinx stiffened. Dropships, he nodded. Scouts, probably. They'll scan the glass fields first. They'll find us, she said. Not if we make sure they don't, before she could stop him. He stood and began walking toward the mouth of the cave. What are you doing? She hissed. Ending it. He knelt by the edge of the cliff, setting the wooden rifle down carefully. From a pouch at his belt, he pulled a small transmitter. Crude, built from scraps of Vailari tech. You've been jamming their long-range sensors with this, Syrinx realized. He smiled faintly. Yeah, but if I boost the signal now, it'll light up this mountain like a beacon. She froze. They'll target here. That's the idea, her eyes widened. You'll die, he shrugged. Someone has to be the ghost they're afraid of. She stepped forward, grabbing his arm. You don't have to do this. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw weariness beneath his calm, the kind that came from carrying too many graves. You don't get it, do you? They think humans are extinct. Let them keep believing that. It's the only way we win, Syrinx's voice broke. You'll just vanish, he smiled. That's what legends do. Before she could speak again, he activated the transmitter. The signal pulsed, bright, sharp, unmistakable. Within moments, the distant sky filled with streaks of violet light as the fleet locked on. He turned to her one last time. Tell them about the man with the wooden rifle. Don't. Make sure they remember. The light from the bombardment swallowed him whole. When the smoke cleared, Syrinx was alone. The cliffside was gone, reduced to molten glass. Only the rifle remained, buried halfway in the ash, its wooden stock charred but unbroken. She fell to her knees beside it, fingers tracing its scorched grain. For the first time in her life she felt small, not defeated but humbled. The rifle still worked. It didn't need a name. It just needed someone to carry it. Weeks later, when Vailari recovery teams landed, they found a single signal beacon transmitting from the ruins. The message contained no coordinates, no commands, only a sentence: strength isn't conquest. It's memory. The Empire's analysts dismissed it as debris interference. But whispers spread among soldiers, stories of a human ghost who fought alone against an empire, and the general who learned to see him not as an enemy, but as a teacher. And among the ruins of Echion III, a figure in battered Vailari armor walked alone, the rifle slung over her shoulder, its wooden stock gleaming in the light of twin moons. When she reached the ridge, she paused, looking out at the endless wasteland. You were right, she murmured. Empires fall. Then she smiled faintly. But humanity doesn't, and she kept walking into the wind.